The contents in the basement horrified police when they got a tip about a farm. Half hidden by trees is a rundown farmhouse outside the small Dutch village of Ruinerwold. It's a lovely, serene setting, but the serenity is shattered in a matter of seconds when cops raid the abandoned building. They discover a secret stairway behind a cabinet that descends into a subterranean chamber. They discover something astounding there. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. Everything started on October 13, 2019, when an odd man showed up in a Ruinerwold tavern. His disheveled look and worn-out clothes astonished the villagers, as did his peculiar behaviors. But as he savored beer after beer, he revealed an unsettling revelation. He was obviously in need of assistance, and the owner quickly called the police. When the horrible truth eventually came to light the next day, it was a development that shook the people of Ruinerwold. They were unaware of the sinister truth that was hiding among them for years. But now, a strange tale was developing, and all eyes were on them. Most people associate the Netherlands with the tulip farms in the central regions or the busy streets of Amsterdam. Still, hardly many travelers reach the province of Drenthe, which is nestled in the northeastern region of the nation. As far as the eye can see, there are endless verdant fields in this largely agricultural country. Drenthe is one of the least populous areas in the Netherlands, with less than 500,000 people living there over an area of more than 1,000 square miles. Many of the inhabitants reside in remote villages that haven't altered much throughout time, despite the fact that some of them congregate in towns like Assen and Emmen. About 30,000 people live in the small municipality of Meppel, which is situated on Drenthe's southwest border. But this quaint town from the 16th century is a true metropolis, in contrast to the countryside village of Ruinerwold, which is about 4 miles northeast. There, in a hamlet that has long been tranquil and close-knit, reside less than 3,000 people. Actually, the most noteworthy event that has happened in Ruinerwold recently was in 1998. That year, the hamlet officially became a part of a larger community when it was merged with the neighboring municipality of De Walden. But things remained mostly unchanged in the sleepy little village, as they had for many years. The mayor of Ruinerwold claims that it is the kind of community where people watch out for one another. Therefore, it was shocking when a string of odd things happened in 2019. The drama reportedly revolved around a farmhouse that appeared to be abandoned on the village's periphery. Up until that point, not much was known about the farmhouse or its occupants by the people of Ruinerwold. Trees and tall fences seemed to block it, and the windows were boarded up. To many, it appeared as though it had been abandoned. Some neighbors pointed out that it didn't seem to be the case. In fact, several from the neighborhood claimed to have seen a lone guy at the remote farmhouse. They said he was doing renovations and that he was a frequent visitor to the building. But nobody remembered seeing any other evidence of life on or near the property, other than a dog and a few geese. Then, everything changed in October of 2019. Chris Westerbeek used to work at his little pub, Café de Castellane, which was located in the heart of Ruinerwold. However, a stranger showed up right before he was about to shut for the day, and Westerbeek saw right away that something was wrong. As far as Westerbeek was concerned, the man seemed stunned. In addition, he had a messy beard and was wearing outdated clothing. The popular venue's owner requested the man to leave, as it was almost time for closure. But when the stranger reappeared in the evening of Sunday, October 13th, Westerbeek made the decision to investigate this time, determined to learn the identity and whereabouts of the stranger. But nothing could have prepared him for what was about to unfold. A peculiar tale started to take shape when the two guys were sitting together on the Café de Castellane's patio. Westerbeek claimed that the man had 5 drinks before making an astonishing admission. It seems that he had been confined to the farmhouse outside the village for about 10 years. Furthermore, he wasn't alone. He said, in reality, that he had other siblings who had been kept shut off from the outside world as well. The man informed Westerbeek he hadn't left the farmhouse in 9 years, according to Westerbeek. October 2019, You could see he had no idea who he was or what he was doing, the proprietor of the tavern said to RTV Drenthe, a local news program. He said he had run away and that he urgently needed help. Westerbeek discussed the peculiar experience in further detail during a BBC interview. The tavern owner remembered, "He looked confused, had long hair, and a dirty beard. He also wore shabby clothing." He stated that he had not attended any school and had not seen a barber in 9 years. However, there was more. Westerbeek went on. He said he had brothers and sisters who lived at the farm. He said he was the oldest and wanted to end the way they were living. The bar owner called the police, even though he had no means of knowing if the stranger's claim was genuine. Perhaps they might verify the claims or, at minimum, offer some assistance. Thus, to conduct an investigation, police investigators showed up at the farmhouse on October 14th. However, they first found nothing suspicious when they crossed the canal to inspect the premises. But upon closer examination, it was discovered that an ordinary cabinet concealed a secret stairway. After descending the stairway, the police entered a concealed area where they uncovered evidence of a clandestine 7-member household. The group apparently included a 58-year-old guy and 6 adults between the ages of 18 and 25. Regarding whether or not he was the father of the others, however, accounts at first differed. However, why were these 6 young people holed up in a room in what seemed to be an abandoned farmhouse? Furthermore, why had no one in their neighborhood ever seen them on the land? It soon became apparent that they had been housed in complete seclusion on the estate. They did not, in fact, ever leave to go to school or engage in community activities. Rather, it's thought that the gang had taken refuge on the farm in case of a cataclysmic end-of-the-world scenario. It's possible that some of the younger members were unaware that there was anything outside of their land. Reports say that while they were living there, all they were doing was biding their time till the end of time. Regarding who was residing in the residence at the time of the police's arrival, accounts again differed. The eldest son, who was 25 at the time, appears to have been the guy Westerbeek met. Moreover, it appears that every piece of evidence backs up his assertion that the family had been living in seclusion for many years. Confounded by this revelation, authorities detained the 58-year-old man, and before long, the sleepy town of Ruinerwald was at the center of a global phenomenon. When reporters swarmed the little town, officials could only inform them that the inquiry was still underway. But strange information began to surface over the next few days. The farm's residents were said to be self-sufficient, subsisting on the vegetables they had planted. None of the young adults, nevertheless, had local registration. According to some reports, they didn't even have birth certificates to prove their identities. What made these individuals wait until the end of the world, and who were they? Police delivered a shocking statement on October 17th. It seems that they had made one additional arrest in connection with the inquiry. By then, the original suspect had been arrested on charges of violating others' health and depriving them of their freedom. A 67-year-old guy was brought in on the same charges later that day. Ruinerwold people were having a hard time processing the news, even while all of this was going on behind closed doors. The town mayor, Roger de Groot, said that a great number of them were consumed with remorse. They asked themselves, "How did this occur in our village? How were we not aware of this?" he asked RTL News. De Groot said, "I've never seen anything like it," in a conversation with local journalists. Other locals, however, talked about realizing that such a horrible tragedy might occur in their neighborhood. One neighbor told the newspaper Algemeen Dagblad, "I'm shaking on my legs." However, there was some positive news to share. Yes, since the family members were taken to a safe home to recuperate after being taken from the property. Over the next few days, specialists were able to examine them more closely. Police stated in a statement that they had been declared in excellent health by a physician. Furthermore, they seemed to have had some education, if not formal education. The people's identities were made public over time. The elder guy, Gerrit Jan van Dorsten, turned out to be the young adult's father who was imprisoned in the mansion. Joseph B., the renter of the actual farmland, was the suspect whom the police first detained. A public statement from other Van Dorsten family members, who are not close to Garrett, was released on October 18th. They asserted in it that back in the 1980s, Garrett Jan Van Dorsten had cut all contact with the family. Moreover, they claimed that they had not heard from him since, and that he had told them not to search for him or his kids. However, the statement stated that all had changed by 2011. 3 of the Van Doren children had fled from their father that year, and word had reached the family that they were in contact with other relatives. The younger members, together with their grandparents, cousins, and estranged uncles and aunts, were happily reunited with their family. The family maintains that they had no knowledge of the 6 more children who were living with their problematic cousin, even in light of this revelation. However, the local newspaper De Stentor quickly got involved in the investigation, and soon reporters had located a few of Van Doren and his kids' former neighbors. Prior to moving to rural Drenthe, the family seems to have resided in the eastern municipality of Zwartwaterland. An October 2019 report from NLX said that their neighbors had not observed anything out of the ordinary about them. A friend said, "The daughter was a very normal girl who attended Agnes in college and worked as an intern at the flower shop." The neighbor did see, though, that the family's son was obviously struggling at home. Unfortunately, a second witness corroborated this, stating that the boy had a friendship with her own child. She is said to have stated, "He ate here quite often. He obviously wasn't accustomed to dining at the table. He obviously didn't come from a loving household." Reporters learned at the same time that a truancy officer had looked into the family while they were residing in Zwartwaterland, but it doesn't seem like they found anything unusual. Actually, nothing further was done. However, it's not apparent if the kids were receiving their education at home. However, this bizarre story took a new turn 3 days later. According to reports, Van Doren discussed the conflict taking place in the spirit realm in a series of strange recordings that he had made back in 2006. In addition, he seemed to address the intricacies of family dynamics, although in an odd and disorganized manner. RTV Trent claims that Van Doren was accustomed to eccentric notions. He was actually a part of the unification movement, which was founded in South Korea in 1954, back in the 1980s. Members of this religious group, which adheres to its own version of Christianity, are frequently referred to as cults. The unification movement's adherents are now referred to as Moonies, and their peculiar views have drawn a lot of criticism. As to the reports, Van Doren and Josephine B. initially met as adherents of this contentious faith. The individual detained at Ruinerwold, according to a movement spokesman, was no longer associated with the group. The perplexing riddle has been further layered throughout time by many sources. For instance, some have said that Van Doren had recently had a stroke and was bedridden when the police came. Others, however, have pointed out that the mother was missing, raising the possibility that she passed away and was interred at the farmhouse. In order to ascertain if Van Doren is the true father of the 6 adults, police are still conducting tests using DNA. In the meanwhile, inquisitive journalists have succeeded in entering the isolated property. However, regrettably, when images of the Ruinerwold House of Horrors were published in media, more questions than answers remain. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.